Here are three intriguing true crime stories where perpetrators mutilated bodies to hide the identity of their victims, making identification difficult through disfigurement. Background. In January 1947, the body of Elizabeth Short, later dubbed the Black Dahlia, was discovered in a vacant lot in Los Angeles, California. Her murder became one of the most infamous unsolved cases in American history. Crime. Elizabeth Short's body was found severely mutilated. The killer had bisected her body at the waist, drained it of blood, and posed it in a grotesque manner. Her face was also slashed from the corners of her mouth to her ears, creating a chilling Glasgow smile. Mutilating bodies to hide identity. The extensive mutilation was intended to delay identification and obscure the cause of death. The lack of blood at the scene suggested that she had been killed elsewhere and her body transported to the lot. Outcome. Despite intense media coverage and a massive investigation, her killer was never identified. The brutal mutilation and disfigurement complicated the forensic analysis and contributed to the enduring mystery surrounding the case. Background. Between 1935 and 1938, the Cleveland torso murderer, also known as the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, terrorized Cleveland, Ohio, with a series of gruesome murders. Crime. The murderer's victims, often homeless or transient individuals, were found dismembered and decapitated. Many of the bodies were found without heads, making identification extremely difficult. Some victims were also subjected to chemical treatments to obscure their features. Mutilating bodies to hide identity. The killer's practice of dismembering and decapitating the bodies was a deliberate attempt to prevent identification and complicate the investigation. The lack of identifiable features hindered the authorities' ability to connect the victims to missing persons reports. Outcome. Despite extensive efforts by law enforcement, including the involvement of the famous detective Eliot Ness, the identity of the Cleveland torso murderer remains unknown. The case remains one of the most notorious unsolved serial killings in American history. In 2012, Jun Lin, a Chinese international student in Montreal, Canada, met a horrific fate at the hands of Luca Magnotta, a Canadian pornographic actor and model. Magnotta committed a gruesome crime when he killed Jun Lin, dismembered his body, and mailed parts of it to various political offices across Canada. He even recorded the murder and dismemberment, posting the video online, which sent shockwaves around the world. In a chilling attempt to conceal Lin's identity, Magnotta dismembered his body and scattered the parts. The severed head was not found until weeks later, which further complicated the identification process. Despite these horrifying efforts to obscure Lin's identity, investigators were able to identify the victim through meticulous forensic analysis and the chilling video evidence. Magnotta was eventually tracked down and arrested in Berlin after an international manhunt and was extradited to Canada. There, he was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. These cases illustrate how mutilating bodies to hide the identity of victims can initially thwart identification efforts. However, persistent forensic investigation and detective work can often uncover the truth, bringing justice to those who were silenced.